Hey Stitches! Welcome back to another crochet video. Today we are making SweetHearts, the famous candy that I've been getting every year from my father since I was a little girl. You can make them in any color you want, with anything, and it's super easy to do. So let's get into it. So for this project you're going to need a embroidery color in the color red, which is what they SweetHearts usually have, a color of the heart you would like to make, some fiber fill, a crochet hook in 2.75 millimeter. You can change this depending on your tension and your yarn weight that you use. A pair of scissors, a sewing needle, and lastly a stitch marker. So for part one, you're going to chain 11, but I highly suggest that instead of chaining 11, you leave yourself a rather long starting tail and you make a crochet cord. I'm going to show you how to crochet cord as I do this. And what you're going to do is you're going to take that beginning tail and you're going to yarn over your hook, and then you're going to pull through both of those loops with your working yarn. Now make sure when you do this you're not doing it too tight, because remember you're going to be working into both sides of this. So again, yarn over with the tail end and then pull through both loops with your working yarn. So what this creates is basically a double chain, and this is really great for working in the starting chain round, which is what we're going to be doing for this project. So again, we're just going to yarn over with the working end, excuse me, the tail end, and yarn over and pull through with the working end. So just continue that until you have 10 of those. So there we go, we have our 10. And just double checking here. And then what you're going to do to make the 11 is you're going to just chain one normally. And what this is going to do is going to help us to bring up the height of the stitch to work into the next one. And you're not going to turn. You're going to work right into this first stitch here. And to continue with the design of the crochet cord, you're not going to crochet over that piece just yet. That is the tail end. And the reason why is because you want it to go in the direction that we pulled it. So you want it to go towards the end there. And then the next stitch, you're going to work over it. So we're going to do a single crochet increase into this first stitch here. I have to be clumsy like I am. Okay, so now that we have our first single crochet increase into that first space, we're going to work 3 single crochets into the next 3 spaces. That's 1 single crochet for each space. We have 1, 2, and as you saw there, it was a little tight, so remember to keep the stitches in the beginning chain fairly loose, but not too loose, because you don't want a bunch of spaces in the middle. So there we go, we have our single crochet increase and then 3 single crochets. So in the next 2 spaces, we're going to do a single crochet decrease. I highly suggest not doing invisible decreases for this pattern. The reason being is because you want as much yarn meat, if you will, in these decreases so that you don't have a lot of holes. If you do the invisible decrease, it kind of changes the shape and it kind of leaves more holes, and you don't want that. So be sure to do a regular decrease there. And then you're going to work 3 more single crochets in the next 3 stitches. You have 1, 2, 3. Again, make sure those stitches are kind of loose. And then our last chain here, we're going to work another single crochet increase. Here you're thinking you might have to turn your work to work down the chain again, but what you're actually going to do is you're just going to rotate it. And you're going to work down the other side of the starting chain. So you're going to do a single crochet increase into this first chain again, which is the same stitch we just worked into. Okay, and then we're going to do 3 single crochets again in the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Now you can drop that the tail end at any time because it's just going to be inside the work anyways. But because I wanted it to look nice, I continue to crochet over it. Now what you're going to do is you're going to skip a stitch and you're going to work 3 single crochets into the same stitch. So skip 1 and then work 3 single crochets into the same stitch. So there you go. And what this is going to create is the very tip of your heart at the bottom. Now making sure that you work into the next stitch, you're going to work 3 single crochets again. This can be a little tricky. You want to make sure you go into the very next stitch. There's 1, 2, and 3. Now you see here there's actually like 2 chains there, but what one of them is actually a chain 1 to begin with. So you're going to make sure you work into the next one and do a single crochet increase. You're going to skip the chain 1 that you started the row with, and you're going to work into a join at the top of your first stitch. So make sure you find that first post and then join to the stitches above that post, not the chain 1 that you have at the beginning of the round. And there you go. There is round 1. I will put a picture of the diagram right here for you guys to pause the video if you want to make sure you have the stitches correct. Okay, now we're going to start round 2 by chaining 1. And we're going to work a single crochet increase into the first 2 stitches of round 2. So here we have our first and the second. Next, we're going to work 2 single crochet decrease in the next 4 spaces. So here we have the first. Remember not to use the invisible decrease. And then our second. Then we're going to skip the next stitch and we're going to work a single crochet 3 together by pulling up a loop in the next 3 spaces. So 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. That pulls the 2 sides of the round 1 together to make the heart shape. And then the next 4 spaces, we're going to do a single crochet increase in each one. Here's 1, 2, three, and 4. That's going to create the rounded edge. And then we're going to work 2 single crochet into the next 2 spaces. So 1, 2. Now in the triple increase from the last round, we're going to do a half double crochet into the first, a double crochet into the second, and a half double crochet into the third. That is going to help push the tip of the heart out. Then we're going to work 3 single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. That leaves us 2 spaces left. Do not count the join. And we're going to work an increase into both of those spaces. There's 1, and 2. We're going to skip the join and the chain 1, and we're going to work a slip stitch into the top of the first stitch of round 2. And that is the end of round 2. Okay, for round 3, we're going to start with the chain 1 again. We're going to work a single crochet increase into the first stitch, a single crochet into the second space, and a single crochet in the third space. Then we're going to work 2 single crochets in the next 2 spaces, and then a single crochet together, then we're going to work 2 more single crochets, and 2, and then we're going to work 4 single crochet increases. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we're going to work 3 single crochets into the next 3 spaces. 1, 2, and 3. Then we're going to work 2 half double crochets in the next 2 spaces. So we have a 1, 2, and then a double crochet on top of the double crochet from the last round. And then 2 half double crochets. Okay, so we just did 2 half doubles, double crochet, and then 2 half doubles again. Next, we're going to do 5 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then we're going to finish with an increase in the last space. Okay, skip the join and the chain 1 and join to the first stitch of round 3. That is the end of round 3. For part 1, you're going to want to cut off the tail and leave yourself about 6 inches or so you can really secure it. And then you're going to want to mark the 17th stitch. But for part 2, you're going to repeat part 1 again, but you're not going to cut the tail. So once you finish rounds 1 through 3 of part 1, you can begin part 2. So for part 2, round 4, we're going to chain 1. And then we're going to start working back post single crochets. So the easiest way to do this for me is to find the post of the first stitch. We're going to insert from the back, and then just kind of twist your hook and go right out the next one. And that's going to grab just the post. Pull through a loop so you have them nice and loose, and then pull through to complete the single crochet. And you're just going to do that for every stitch around. So again, find the post, insert from the back, and then out the next one, and then complete your single crochet as normal. And through the back, out through the next, single crochet. And through the back, out through the next, yarn over, pull through both loops. What this is going to give you is a very defined edge and turn of the work. You're going to complete that all the way around, and then you're going to do 2 rounds of just single crochets. Remember to chain 1 at the beginning of every round, and join. Make sure you leave a long tail at the end of part 2 for sewing the pieces together. And once you have finished that, we're going to go back to part 1's piece, and we're going to do the embroidery. Now you can do this after you've sewn together the pieces, but I highly suggest doing it before. What you're going to do is put a knot at one end of your embroidery thread. And I always start my embroidery with the middle letter right in the middle. So today I'm doing the word cutie pie. So I'm going to put this T right here in the center of the heart. Now you notice I'm kind of fishing around in the stitches there because I want to make sure that I'm getting the thickest part of the yarn when I go through. That way it's not going to be tugging and causing more holes. And I'm just laying the yarn down to find out where I want the T to end. Another suggestion that I have is to make sure that you're doing these letters kind of loose. You're not really going to have to worry about people pulling on the yarn or anything, unless you're giving it to a child, but then I would definitely suggest doing knots in the back of the work to make sure that those aren't going to get pulled out. But you're just going to kind of do very straight letters. Again, looking for that really meaty part of the yarn. Didn't want to go through there because then it would cause that yarn to kind of slant a bit. I didn't want that. So I make sure to go through the inside of the yarn. And right back to the original hole. And there we go. You have U and a T. So just continue doing that. You don't really have to worry so much about what the back of the yarn or the piece will look like. No one's going to see it. And then when you're done, you just have to secure the end. You can cut the yarn if you like, but I'm just going to leave it in there for extra stuffing. There we go, we got cutie pie. So the next section is going to be sewing the pieces together. So you're going to want to take the tail end of part 2. We're going to add that to our sewing needle. Then we have our join here. So we're going to secure the join by going right into this next stitch. That's going to help make the join flush against the edge there and really secure it in. And then we're going to find the marked stitch of part 1. If you forgot to mark it, I'm just remind you that's the 17th stitch. I'm going to go ahead and get the marker off. Forcefully. And then we're going to go into that stitch with our sewing needle. And once they're close together, we're going to go back through the original stitch on part 2. Use the blurriness. Okay. And then we're going to go right into the next stitch in both pieces. Make sure to only go through the loops. And then right back in. Now what this is doing is it's pulling the top loops of part 1 flush against the inside of part 2. And that is giving the same effect as if I was doing back loops, back posts single crochets as we did at the round 4 of part 2. It's going to give a nice seamless look to the whole piece. Also, you don't want to be pulling too loose And you also don't want to pull too tight. You don't want to mess up the shape of the heart, so make sure that you're pulling as you go and not waiting until you have like 4 stitches to pull through. And now you can really see how the top loops of part 2 are standing up just as they do on the bottom part of part 2. We did those back posts. We're just going to do this all the way around. Until we have an opening about the size of our finger. And then we're going to take our fiber fill and we're going to start to stuff our piece. Now I really want to make a note here that stuffing your piece with fiber fill isn't about just how full you can make it. It's about sculpting. I often see people and they're just stuffing the piece as much as they can. And while you can't do that, it's going to change the outcome of your piece. So if you were to do that here, you'd end up probably with a kidney bean shape. And we don't want that. We want a heart. So make sure you're pushing it into the top rounded corners and the tip of the heart. And you're really pushing in that dip at the top as well so that you get that nice heart shape. Now, sweethearts aren't exactly the most perfect heart shape, so you don't have to worry about it being a perfect heart. But I just want to make sure that you're aware that you want to be sculpting your piece, not just stuffing it. As you can see, it's kind of puffing out, so I'm making sure that I sculpt those down. And it's got that nice edge there. And the fiber, it will, dense up a bit. So you're going to have to put a lot in there. But remember, you want to be sculpting it in there, not just pushing it in and leaving it. You want the top and bottom to be flat. You don't want it to be bulging out. And you want those side walls to be nice and tall as well. Okay, when you're satisfied, just go ahead and push the remaining fiber fill in out of your way, and then continue on. And when you're finished and you've sewn in your ends, this is the finished product. And you can make them in any color, any saying you want. Alright, stitches, that's the end of the video today. I hope you enjoyed it. Just a reminder, you can buy the PDF on my Etsy and Ravelry, as well as a free version available on my website. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!